All right, so Mike and I have been looking right now. We're still in the book of James, and this morning I'm going to start off. Normally I usually like to start off by just reading the scripture, but I'm going to do this one a little different. So, looking around, most of the folks in this room are parents, and if I had to guess, most of us have more than one child. So, I'm going to pose a question to you. Please don't answer it. So that's no hands. Don't keep your hands down. Don't sign. Don't wiggle your ear. If I asked you to pick which was your favorite child, if I asked that question, hey, who's your favorite kid? I've got two boys. If somebody asked me that question, I'd be pretty hesitant to voice an answer. At least I should be. I feel like I should be. So, but like I say, I'm willing to guess that probably the most popular answer would be, hey, listen, I love my kids the same. I love them both the same. So, I would say you probably wouldn't pick one of them over the other. You have adult kids. You had one that was a lawyer, one that's a trash man. I don't think you would say, well, my son who's a lawyer is more successful than my son works in sanitation. I don't think you would pick. I think it's you love them the same. And so that's kind of what I want to look at. So I'll set up a little different question. This one at the end is something that you could answer. Most of us will just internalize it and think about it, and I think it's worth thinking about. So this is the setup for it. I'll read this off of here just so I can get it straight. But let's say you walk up downstairs to the fellowship hall outside on a Friday afternoon. And you're just in time for the food pantry to open. Now, I know they don't come through that door, but you'll have to suffer with my little situation here. So you come up, and there's a lot of folks ready to get into the food pantry. And you go into the fellowship hall, and there's about 20 or 30 people sitting down at the tables. And this Friday is a little different than normal. So when you look around, you notice everybody has on a name tag. So it's got their name. There's other information though, so if you could get closer, you could look. The name tag has this additional information. It's got things like their current occupation, their annual income, the social groups that they're a part of. It also has a list of people that are influencers, or people in powers of position that they're already friends with. So you're kind of getting an idea of what these people, what their day looks like, who they associate with, maybe that, like I said, the influence maybe that they even have in their day-to-day lives. So you can see all this, and now you're walking to find a seat. You're going to sit down and start talking. You want to see who's there, what they're doing, what's going on. So what you begin to notice is that there's only two colors of name tags. There's green and there's purple. And what you're starting to put together is that the folks with the green name tags, based on the information on their sticker, they seem to be a little more successful. They look a little better dressed. Overall, they're cleaner. They seem to be cleaner. You start looking at the folks with the purple name tags, and they, from reading it, you think maybe they're struggling a little bit. Based on the information that's there, maybe they struggle to pay their bills on time. Maybe they're choosing sometimes between a meal and medication, a meal and their water bill. So they're in a lot different situation than the folks with these screen tags. So, given all this, as you walk around the room looking for a place to sit, are you going to sit with a group of people wearing the green name tags? Or are you going to sit with the people that wear the purple name tags? How do you choose? You're going to pick somehow. If you don't recognize anybody, a lot of us, if we see somebody we know, that's the first place we go. Or depending on who it is, maybe we see somebody we know, and that's the place we don't. Oh, I've had run into that person before. I know that person. I know their situation. I'm a little uncomfortable, so I'll just go over here. But thinking about that, if you're looking to sit among the folks, the green tags that seem to folks that are in purple name tags that seem to be, like I said, seem to be struggling. So, I asked that question, and it's a tough question for a Sunday morning. So if I asked everybody, if I wanted to raise their hands, which I'm not asking for, but wanted to raise their hands. But asking that question here on a Sunday morning in the church building, I'm probably going to get a lot more purple tags. These are the folks that are struggling. These are the folks I should minister to. But if I ask you this question during the week, and I ask it to you away from church, maybe with folks that you work with, maybe through somebody that you work with, or we just observe, set the situation up and we've watched, I would be willing to guess that most of us will probably go and gravitate towards the folks who bring that. So that's something that we struggle with, So, like I said, if I ask a question here, and I'll use the phrase, if I've got on my Sunday church glasses, I'm going to choose purple. But you catch Glenn outside, you catch Glenn at work, you catch me driving at a red light. What do I choose? What do I think about? If I saw this, how do I react to it? And so just thinking about that. The other example, kind of in the same realm, I don't know if anybody's ever attended a dinner at a restaurant that has a dress code. And I don't mean, no shoes, no shirt, no service. It's not a modesty-based dress code, but maybe you have to have a jacket and a tie. So that's a good setup for, based on how you're dressed, based on how you look, they either allow you in or they don't. So, all this setup, this morning what we're going to do is we're going to look at James chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. So I'll give everybody a chance to flip over, and then I'll read that. James chapter 2. Look at 1 through 13. We'll break this up into two pieces, assuming that I can make it to the time, or we'll get to the end. I'll have to really stretch and struggle. You guys will have to really give me your input in case I run a little short, but I think we should be okay. So I'm going to read the copy I've got. Excuse me, it's from the English Standard Version. So, my brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. For if a man is wearing a gold ring and fine clothes comes to your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothes also comes in, and if you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing and say, you sit here in a good place, while you say to the poor man, you stand over there, or you sit down at my feet. Have you not made distinctions among yourselves, and become judges of evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers. Has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he has promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor man. Are not the rich the ones who oppress you, and the ones who drag you into court? Are they not the ones who blaspheme the honorable name by which you are called? If you really fulfill the royal law according to the Scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you're committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever keeps the whole law, but fails in one point, has become guilty of all of it. For he said, do not commit adultery. Also said, do not murder. If you do not commit adultery, but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So speak, and so act, as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy, the one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. So there's a lot in this particular passage. And first thing I'll say is it's worth taking note of who James is writing to. A couple of weeks ago, Leon had spoke up and mentioned the situation that James is in as a leader, as an elder. He's seeing this, but the folks that James is talking to, who are they? Historically, who are they? You look at the James 1:1. And who does it say the letters to? 12 tribes. So these people historically and currently are of what group? Right? They're Jewish. Their family has followed under the law of Moses generations. So they are historically a Jewish people. So historically Jewish are these generations of families that have followed and been raised under the law of Moses. James is saying things that they recognize. He's bringing up passages, he's bringing up pieces that are familiar to them. They ring familiar with these people. So Exodus 23, 1 through 3. So in Exodus 23, 1 through 3, the law stated, "You shall not spread a false report. You shall not join hands with a wicked man to be a malicious witness. You shall not fall in with the many to do evil, nor shall you bear witness in a lawsuit, siding with the many, so as to pervert justice. Nor shall you be partial to a poor man in his lawsuit." So the things that they struggle with, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. The things that they struggle with are the same things that we struggle with. The things that they see in their day-to-day living are the same things that we see. So later on in that same section, so in verse 6 of Exodus 23, the statement or the verse reads, "You shall not pervert the justice due to your poor in his lawsuit." So the law was written to make sure that the folks who are acting as judges are acting fairly. They're being impartial. What they don't want to do is they don't want the judge to side with the folks who are poor just because they're poor, just so they can get something from those that are wealthy. They also don't want the wealthy to be able to influence, to be able to have and like I said, an influence over the judge that may sway the judge's verdict or the judge's opinion over what's going on. The idea, is the law is blind, justice is blind. So this kind of thing, this law was written this way, but in practice, I'd say it's pretty similar to what goes on now. A lot of times it's not uncommon, in this time it's not uncommon even today. Maybe that folks who are more wealthy are able to buy their way out of or through the law, habits, companies, individuals. That's something that it seems to kind of go as it's always gone. That basically the way of the world is stacked against the poor. They don't have the influence. They don't have the resources. They're worried about other things other than amassing more wealth. They're worried about eating. They're worried about shelter, clothing. So the ways of the world, like I say, they're just stacked against the poor. So for the Gentiles, the message that was contained in the Gospels attracted those that are living on the fringes of society. The companion guide that we use, in which there's a couple lines in here that I actually wrote down because I wanted to read them. It said the poor had little investment in, and hence little attachment to, the world. So that's something that and I'll mention this a little later too. But you think about how easy is it for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven? We were told how easy it is, but it's not. And that may be what it is. It may be that the more things that we have, the more attached we become to the world. So therefore, it's harder for us to actually follow some of the commandments. So there was a message given in Matthew 5. I'm gonna not skip around. So I'm going to tell you that followers of Jesus were instructed to do what with their worldly possessions. He was asked directly one time, "Hey, Rabbi, what do I, he approached, Rabbi, what do I need to do?" Sell everything you got, give it away. And that may be because it's recognized that humans attach themselves to the world. And we attach ourselves to the world sometimes with people, most oftentimes with things that are of the world, wealth, possessions. So the idea that it's best to just not have as much. So, like I said, that's really the thought of why maybe the poor were so drawn to the message of the gospel. They just didn't have as much invested. So it seemed like, I'm hearing a message that says there's something better, and it's later. And it's okay that I don't have as much. I don't have as much as the people that I see or some of the folks around me. It's okay. I'm going to get a reward later. I'm going to be compensated later. I'm going to be glorified later. They had a way to put that together in their mind because they lacked in the physical world. So, Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus speaks to the poor in spirit, the meek, the pure in heart, and those that hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those in society that were in a position of little or no power. Early Christians, like I say, they tended to be monetarily poor. So that verse that I alluded to earlier in Mark 10:25. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. So when you look at wealth and earthly success from the perspective of the world, then life is easier for the wealthy. And the physical time that we spend on earth is easier for the wealthy than it is for the poor. And so this really starts around, James's message starts around and is obviously focused on the differences between the rich and the poor. But the groups that James is writing to, the majority of them would have been of the Jewish followers, the Christian Jews, I guess is the term I'm looking for. The majority of those, the poor, would have been the ones that would have made up the Christian population. Like I said, they're kind of on the fringes. They're pushed out a little bit. So this is the message. This is the group that the message really seemed to reach. Despite the fact that these people had surely been mistreated, or had judges come down against them, they've had issues with folks with wealth. These Christians were still giving preferential treatment to wealthy. Back in the verses, it calls it out. And if someone coming in wearing a gold ring and fine clothes comes in your assembly, you scramble to cater to them. And then you have someone who comes in with shabby clothes, then you say, I don't really have a really nice seat for it, but you can stand in the back if you want to. Or just hang out in the foyer out there. If you want, just sit on the ground. This is what they struggled with. Even in just the sides, rich and poor. So the other folks that are following this, the other groups that are drawn, are Gentiles as well. So for them, there's even a different sort of preferential treatment. So the Jews were who? As far as the old law, they were the chosen people, right? Chosen by God. So the Gentiles are feeling, they're feeling a step behind. Even though the message came out, this is for the Jews and the Gentiles. It was first for the Jews. So they're feeling a little behind. So the more Gentiles, even more behind. Right. Now, that's an interesting point. So, just in case somebody didn't hear, so these tribes are the 12 tribes as mentioned in dispersion. So if you're struggling already, and now you're being forced to relocate someplace else, you don't have the same resources, you don't have same wealth, same transportation, food, shelter, and then there's influence again. If I've got a lot of money and I need something when we get someplace, maybe I have a way to influence and get more. Whereas the poor, their situation probably goes from bad to worse. Because now I'm in a foreign place, so I'm unfamiliar with my surroundings. There may be other inhabitants there that you come across. So the folks and the systems and the location of things that I'm familiar with, that I'm used to, that I get support from, they may have changed. So that's good. So looking at these groups, and I mentioned that the Gentiles were kind of 2 steps behind the poor Gentiles were, because not only were they poor, they were struggling in the physical, the day-to-day, but they're feeling, like I say, we're kind of 1 step behind, as it is anyway. So, there were reminders in different sermons, different lessons, that Jesus had brought forth, that the message was for the Jews and the Gentiles, and it shows it multiple times in the New Testament. But they've been separate, they've been divided for so long that these divisions were ingrained in them. These divisions stayed in them. And so having a separate, they often recognized, you and me are not the same. And that's an issue. Like I said, the verses that we read, they focus in mostly on the monetary aspect, wealthy versus poor. But the preferential treatment was something that they faced in general. So whether they were rich, whether they were poor, whether they were Jew or Gentile, early Christians struggled with favoritism. The parable of the Good Samaritan, that's an unimaginable situation, really, for the people that Jesus was talking to. So there's a gentleman, he's robbed, he's stripped of his clothes, he's beaten, and he's left for dead on the side of the road. And 2 folks that passed him by, priest and Levite, people who, the gentleman was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. So the people that passed him by are the people that would have been in his same group. So for a Samaritan to stop and be willing to get involved, interact, is a group that the Jews at the time probably weren't willing to interact with. It's a group that they just decided, this is not who we want to talk to, this is not who we want to be around. So normally asked, I think that, if the man on the side of the road was able to respond, and the Samaritan came to pick him up, he might even say, no, just leave. Just let me lay here. I don't want your help. And we have to look at that. That's the part of the story, the history that requires us to do research, to look and understand why certain groups get chosen when you're talking, when you're reading a parable like this or a story like this. Understanding the background of, why, what is it about the Samaritan? We've all been taught, why, what the difference is, why this is set up this way. But it's understanding the history behind it. So that's something I think is important to take a look at. So the favoritism that was present then, in this time, like I say, is still present for us today. So there's another reference a little later on, but the story, the situation that I brought up originally is about how we deal with, how we interact with those around us that aren't from the same economic bracket or same group. So we always run the risk, if we've got a couple that comes in the door and they're visiting, and if I go back to the earlier example that I if you looked at them and you saw these visitors and their tag was a green name tag, you thought, oh, this is somebody, we should probably take them out to lunch, get to know them. It's great. You see the same couple with a purple name tag, you have to do the same thing.
We ask the question, why do we do that? I think the reason is more of a selfish, what can I get out of that relationship? How is that going to impact my personal network and my ability to make my life easier? As opposed to someone, well, they have nothing to offer me. And it's the emphasis is placed on you as an individual rather than what are you supposed to be doing with your time anyhow.
Right. Yeah, so that's true. That's the root of it, is the struggle of us to put away our worldly goals. What is it that we're in our job, in our social groups, the movement, the influence. I think that's a thing that it's a real problem. This is you read stories in the Bible, and as a child I can remember reading through, and I had my Bible, but I had a Bible storybook, so it was just a collection of different stories. And as a kid, it seemed like it was just a collection of stories. I didn't always put together of how the impact of the story, the real meaning of the story, what it really meant to me as a kid. But it's these lessons, it's these stories that let us know, how we're supposed to live our lives. It brings up scenarios for us so that we can understand application. Brian, I think that's a good point, though, is that we typically choose, and I don't know if there's another reason other than personal advancement, personal influence. Why do you choose whichever report? That's the scenario that's brought up. The reason I'm giving a preferential seat, the reason I'm walking up and greeting this person is because of their earthly status, their earthly wealth. They're completely separate. Right. And it is, like I said, this is ingrained in them. They were separate. And like I said, the Jewish people were told they were God's chosen people. So that means if I'm the chosen person and you're not a Jew, it means more than it means you're not chosen.
And also, I find it interesting when you read Acts and you see how Saul's conversion, when he went back to Jerusalem, he tried to convince the apostles that he was eager to preach. They were all afraid out in first and so forth. You don't see in this particular account Paul's testimony that he gave to the various churches. I like the one in Galatians where he was talking about his testimony of how things happened. And he said the reason why Peter was given to the Jews was to preach to the Jews, and to Paul it was for the Gentiles. And they all understood that the apostles, and before they sent Paul and Barnabas on their way, he said, and they told me one thing, not to always remember the poor. Always remember the poor. You say, how? Keep them in your line of sight as you preach the gospel. You spread the word.
Right. And that's interesting too. So the analogy or the point of Peter he's talking to a lot of the Jews. The Jews are going to listen to you. And Paul is going to be some of the Gentiles are. The Gentiles, I think, are going to listen to anybody. If Peter's talking to the Gentiles, hey, listen, there's a Jewish man who's talking to us like we're the same.
Relevant to Galatians 2:10.
Oh, 2:10, okay. So this section of James, is really kind of in two parts, and this is the first part. David?
So for me, at least, the key is in verse 4 of this passage. You have you not made yourself and become judges of evil motives? It's not just a differentiation between rich or economic differentiation. You touched on this, but it's a principle of
Right. So that's a great phrase. Souls are of equal value. So when you strip us down to what makes us us, it's not my clothes, it's not what I drive, it's not where I live, it's not who I talk to. You strip me down all the way to the essential piece, and I'm a soul. And my soul and your soul are souls. There's a lot of hands up. Brian, I like yours
Just
first.
to that point, we wouldn't say that's evil. We would just say that's the way you do things. That's the way how you interact, and that's how you help yourself in life. But to strike the contrast, what does he say it is? And how is that conflict with the world and how the world operates? And this is 180 degrees different, the way we've been called.
Right. And it's because we're also always told that we have to separate ourselves from the world. We can't conform, which this is, conformity. Do it how the world does it versus being transformed. You have to do it a different way. This is how you live your life. This is how everybody else lives their life. Sure. Yep. And that's, like I said, that's something that as humans, we struggle with. Right. So that's the point. Verse 13. If you're judging without mercy, then you're going to get judged without mercy, because mercy is more important than judgment. So, well, actually, I'll use that. We'll get into this next section. That's I didn't see other hands. We'll get to the next section of these verses. So that's 1 through 7. Look at the next section, 8 through 13. I'll read that again. If you really fulfill the royal law according to the Scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you are committing sin and convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of all of it. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. If you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. So, looking at this section, there's some words that get used. James writes the word the royal law. If we're following the royal law, we're doing well. And that law being love thy neighbor as thyself. So again, this goes back to something that they recognize. Leviticus 19 verse 18. That one reads from ESV. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your own people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. So he's reciting Scripture. He's reciting words to them that they recognize. So he says, do these things, don't do these things. And then he brings it up. So it's not a new concept for them. They already know. They've already been raised on it. So they recognize statements like this. Now, I don't, and like I say, the companion guide, I looked around for this as well. I don't know if we really know why James calls it the royal law. It's just not exactly sure. There were some ideas posed when you read it, you think about it. I guess it's an opinion. Like we do the on Sunday evening when land studies, we do the question and answer. They'll say some of this is just black and white. Some of this is kind of opinion. So I think this falls maybe a little bit to the realm of opinion or interpretation of why that phrase was chosen. One of the things that I looked at, so maybe the idea is that this law sits above all others that pertain how man treats man. So the commandments are broken into how man and God relate, and then how man and man relate. So when asked the question in Matthew 22 and states, you shall love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. So that's the first commandment. That's the commandment that sets the tone for the relationship between God and man. And that basically serves the structure for everything else. Everything else is built on that one. But he also takes the opportunity when Jesus is asked that question, and they ask him, "What's the most important law?" He doesn't stop at, it's not a courtroom as much as they may have wanted it to be. Just answer the question that I asked you. Don't provide any extra information. So they ask Jesus, "What's the most important law?" Jesus says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind." And then he also provides them with the next law. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so, like I said, this word, the royal law, and I was kind of curious about this myself. I didn't understand the selection of words. It was mentioned that the king acts as a man that ruled over all men. So maybe the reason the term the royal law was used is something that the readers of that place and that time would have associated, with the importance of the law. So this law for men is above all other laws of men, and maybe that's the reason why. But like I said, I'm always kind of curious as to the word selection when it's something kind of out of the ordinary. And the companion got touched on his son. So he also makes a point that the commandments were given to us must be followed in their entirety. So short for Glenn, that means sin is a sin. And if I'm given a whole set of rules, I'm a rule follower, by the way. So I'm an engineer. I mentioned that before. I'm just set up that way. And so I really like it when things are written down, and I can kind of I'm checking word for word for it. It's just kind of how I normally operate. So having a spelled out pathway is really good for me. The gray is where I get to I get a lockdown. I really have to sit and think about it because I'm trying to be the rule follower. There's situations that you get into that just aren't always that easy to make your way through them. So when we're looking at these laws, and like I say, a sin is a sin. So a shortcoming to God's desire and expectation in His commandment is a sin. The point is raised in James 2:11. James kind of wraps up the discussion of favoritism with a summary of what the readers need to do. And he lets them know, he starts off basically and states to them, okay, this is a problem that I see. This is what I've heard about. That problem of favoritism. So kind of at the end of this, he gives them the set of instructions, so I'm going to say. So here was the problem, and it's like this, and let me give you kind of a compact version of how to take care of it. So speak, in James 2:12-13, so speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judge without mercy to one who has shown no mercy, and mercy triumphs over judgment. So it is kind of weird too, the law of liberty. I think that's an interesting turn or use of words. I usually think of law and liberty as two opposing things. A law is controlling. How fast can I drive? What turn left on red? There's these things that are prohibited. Laws are prohibited. And I read the word liberty, and liberty in my mind is the freedom to do what I choose, to go where I want to go. That's in my mind. I look at it like that's liberty. The other great phrase that's used in the guidebook says the quest for unrestrained freedom is at the root of the world's misery. So as I think about that, I think about liberty, and I can do what I want to do. I'm free to do whatever I choose to do. That phrase I thought was really good. The quest for unrestrained freedom is at the root of the world's misery. So all the time just doing what you want to do as a human, as your base instincts, your base desire, whatever, acting not as a follower of God, but as a follower of the world, is what eventually leads to all the world's misery. That's where it all starts at. It's the idea that I'm not going to follow God. I'm not going to, the creator of everything now somehow doesn't have control over me. I'm going to choose what I want to choose. I'm going to do what I want to do. That's where it all comes apart from us. We look away. We decide we're not gonna do these things. So we want to forge our own direction. And that idea that was put forth as well. It mentions Jesus addressed a same kind of paradox, John 12:25, and it's kind of the same thing. Like I said here, the law of liberty. And in John, I said John 12:25, whoever loses his life and whoever hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. So, same kind of thing. I'm not losing my life, but I'm going to keep it. So, it's these ideas of kind of a one or the other, or one leads to the other. So, the idea that freedom can only be experienced in the context of restraint. So true freedom, true eternal freedom, freedom from eternal punishment, comes from obedience to God, obedience to God's law. Ron?
I think it's the original sin. It's the initial choice that man was posed. Are you going to be your own God, or are you going to submit yourself to the one who has right to rule